Hi, everybody. Welcome back from break. I'm going to present Caitlin Balderman, and she is the e-resource and open education librarian at Marian University in Indianapolis. Caitlin's presentation is called Thinking Outside the Text, and she's going to tell us more about that right now.
All right, thank you, Leanne. As she said, I am the e-resource and open education librarian at Marian University, but I have had, as we say in the library world, I've worn many hats, and so this is something, a project that I've worked on for about a year now, even if it doesn't fall under my particular job description. And so I'll be talking about that today. How would you like me to?
Oh, you can actually touch the screen.
Oh, yes, okay. So we're talking about dynamic shelving today, switching a collection to dynamic shelving from traditional shelving. Dynamic shelving is a bookstore style of shelving that focuses on making browsing easy. The way we usually file things in an academic library is generally focused on making it easier for a librarian to put things in the right spot, and less geared toward somebody who maybe doesn't know what they're looking for and wants to find something that's not a known item. And so for something like our leisure reading collection, where it's not about finding a particular book for a research paper, it's about finding something in an area that you enjoy and want to explore more for, like not necessarily curricularly. That's why I took on this project, is to focus on that browsing aspect, making it easier for the patron who doesn't necessarily know what they're looking for. And this project is inspired by Kelsey Bogan of Don't Shush Me. And I ran across her work in a school library, switching to dynamic shelving from G-Trup, from the League of Awesome Librarians, who posted about doing it in their library as well. So I'm at Marian University. We're a private Catholic institution in Indianapolis. We're a member of the Private Academic Library Network of Indiana. And we've got about 3,000 students. We have both undergraduates and graduate programs at the Indianapolis site. And notably, we have med students at our site over the summer. And so they spend a lot of time in the library building. And are also looking for, something that's not medical sometimes in order to take their mind off of all the important things that they're doing. So this is a look at before for our leisure reading section. This is what we might call static shelving. Things are organized by call number. This is a little light in this section because we have a lease program with Baker and Taylor where we can get X amount of books sent to us per month and use them, and then send back 4 out of 5, and then keep 1 of those 5. So that's a great way for us to get popular content that we don't necessarily want to keep forever in our collection, but is something that people want to be reading at this time. So this is, again, a before shot. Fiction and nonfiction things are interfiled because, again, it's based on that call number. And they're shelved spine out like we usually do in the academic library. And so you can see this is a pretty standard look, but it doesn't really help with browsing if you don't know what you're looking for or where you might find it. It's just like a new book section. Our after is using dynamic shelving. So you can see these are now grouped by genre. We have nonfiction in one shelf and fiction in another, kind of 1.5 shelves. So they're already split. This bookstore style gets you to see all the lovely covers. And it's geared toward browsing. It is not geared toward you putting it away, which can be hard for us to let go of. But it does get people to see things as they're walking by. This is a high traffic area that this is next to. And is more eye-catching than a tiny spine on the side. The genres that we used, I developed based on what we had in our collection, and are something that you can kind of customize for your own situation. What we went with in nonfiction was philosophy, psychology, and religion, history and social science, politics, law, and education, music and the arts, and then science, medicine, and technology. And all of those have their own color and like 3 or 4 letter code that goes with them. And those are labeled on the spine. And then for fiction, we had romance, mystery and thriller, science fiction, fantasy, and horror, literary fiction, contemporary fiction and poetry, and then historical fiction. So our stats for this, we had twice as many checkouts this summer after we switched to dynamic shelving as compared to the previous summer. And again, that's largely from faculty and staff and med students who are here over the summer. That's a big increase in circulation in that collection. In year-over-year usage, so comparing this last 12 months that we've had it dynamically shelved versus the previous 12 months, there's been a 46% increase in usage. And just anecdotally, we see, I've had multiple librarians come to me and say, hey, I saw people looking at the leisure reading section that you redid. There's more people sitting in that space. We kind of reorganized it to be a little more comfortable and easy to still have people like walk by and browse. And it's always nice to see when there's a hole in your display that you have to go fill with another lovely book. So from both a quantitative and sort of qualitative perspective, all of that has been an increase. So a few lessons learned. Plan ahead. Take better before pictures than I did. Put your genre codes in your catalog record. I didn't do this initially because I was like, I wasn't sure that I really wanted to add to a record. But what I've ended up doing is putting that code as like a suffix in the record when I input the LC call number. And that just helps for if somebody is finding a particular book in that section, they know which of the 2 shelves and what spot to look in. Be sure to teach your shelvers. On the next slide, you'll see kind of the little cheat sheet that I made for them that's color coded and has like all the 3-letter codes on it, so that you can spatially locate it. But I've also you might have to do a little more instruction on that than you think. I have some things that are the same color but have a different code, and those will end up in both places. So just make sure you take the time to walk your shelvers through how you want that to look. And then display, we have a check me out display by the desk. And particularly at the beginning, we had a lot of leisure reading books that were there. Make it even clearer than you think you need to that those books can be checked out. Like we have a sign that says check me out, and we still have people that are like, can I check this out? So there is a little bit of that sort of, I don't know if it's library anxiety but there is a little bit of disconnect of like, oh, can I touch the thing? And you want people to be able to touch the books and take the books home. So as much as you can reinforce that interaction, like be welcoming with that. So if you're ready to get started with this type of project, planning ahead is your friend. Picking your genres and categories ahead of time is going to make your life a lot easier. Take a look at your collection and what things you tend to have in whatever collection you decide to revamp, whether it's a popular fiction or a leisure reading that has nonfiction and fiction. Look at what you have and what you tend to collect and make sensible categories based on that. That's not going to be a hard and fast, like everybody has to have this section, but decide that ahead of time based on what you have. You can see here, I have a bunch of colored labels, and then I have my codes that I made based on the genre categories that I chose. Signage for your new sections. I think you can see on the previous screen and on here that I have the name of the section, and then for fiction in particular, I listed out like this includes, you know, XYZ. So that people who are maybe just getting back into reading can kind of understand and maybe have not thought of their reading as in a specific genre, can figure out, oh, I like books that do this, and understand this is now called thriller. Book stands are nice for propping your books up and save your spines, particularly if they are paperbacks. So that's important. Again, having an explanation for your shelving system is good. If you can see kind of tiny here, I basically recreated the wall of our leisure reading section and then put labels on where all those things should go. And then again, before and after pics to show your progress is always important. That is all I have for that. I am open for any and all questions.
Who was the person, like on one of your first screens? It was Kelsey somebody.
Oh yeah, let's flip back. Kelsey Bogan, I believe.
What did they?
So Kelsey Bogan of Don't Shush Me works in a public library. And so she was looking for ways to reach out to middle schoolers in particular, of them finding books that interested them. And so that is largely what I modeled, kind of like thinking about my space and how to set it up so that it was inviting and informative and gave a sort of guideline as to where you might find things. Anybody else?
Have you gotten feedback from faculty? And has it been good feedback or like libraries work, or is it?
Oh yeah, have I gotten any negative feedback? I have not. The faculty feedback, I have not gotten a lot of faculty feedback in general because that particular collection is not seen as super curricular. I think that is somewhat true and somewhat false. Like there is definitely like current research being done that I think that is there in the nonfiction section in particular that is related to courses. But it's generally not seen as like faculty aren't sending their students there for a particular reason usually. The faculty feedback that I have gotten that is positive is we had 2 faculty publish fiction novels. And so being able to like promote those there and like have them facing out and like always being seen, they like that. I like that. That's a win all around. But yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
Did you have to spend a lot of money on the project?
No, this was a very low cost project. The main cost is time. And so it was definitely a summer project. But mostly it's planning it out and then taking the time to actually like physically handle and relabel and do all those things, because you do like, depending on the size of your collection, I think I was doing maybe like 100 to 200 books. I had to categorize them by genre, and to do that, I was going to Barnes and Noble and looking at like their subject categories, like where they would put them. And then sometimes there's like a fuzzy determination there, and I can kind of go based on like reading the back of the book and the call number and those sorts of things to decide which of my sort of genres I'm gonna put it in. And so that takes time, like particularly at the outset. But as far as like keeping it going, that time is pretty low. It's basically when I send books back and then get a new shipment of leased books in, then I'm going through, I'm having to put them in the catalog anyway. I just need to do one extra step of going to the Barnes and Noble site, figuring out how I want to genre categorize it, and then putting that on the book along with the barcode and stuff that I have to do anyway. I will say it is important to really know the genres that you are putting on, like particularly romance. Romance, for something to be considered a romance novel by romance readers, it has to have a happily ever after ending, or a happily for now. And so there are some books that have a romance plot in them that do not necessarily, it is not about the romance having a happily ever after. And so if you put that in the romance section, a romance reader is going to be angry. And so familiarizing yourself with genres that you may not read in for that reason is important, so that you're not making false promises to the readers of that genre.
Did you find yourself running out of space? Because if you're putting them face out instead of sideways, excuse me, like that would require a lot of shelf space. And
Yes.
I don't know, how did you handle that?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing thing, and I'm gonna flip back to this. There's some fluctuation in the amount of books that we have at a given time based on like when I've sent some back and haven't necessarily received some in yet, or if I've received them and then haven't sent some back out. So that's something to keep in mind in your planning of if your collection is going to shift like that. And this, I think, has fewer books there than we do now in the section. So there is still like some things spine out, just because of space considerations, but I usually like to rotate those through. And of course, if something gets checked out, replacing it with something face out. So that's kind of like an ongoing management thing. It's good to get away from your desk once in a while and walk over there. So, you know, you can walk over there, finagle how things are looking. But yes, and like this picture here, this is after I had sent back a bunch and had not yet received a new shipment of lease books. So sometimes it looks nicer when there are fewer of them. Something to keep in mind. So you can see more beautiful covers. Yeah.
You mentioned Baker and Taylor as your vendor. Is it a leasing kind of program that you got?
Yes, so the way it works is we pay a certain amount of money per year, and you can kind of determine how much you want to lease. For us, we're paying for 10 books per month. But that does not have to be ordered every single month. It's really flexible. I usually do 2 or 3 like bigger shipments a year.
Are you doing the selection for all of those?
I am, yeah. It's not, again, like 10 books per month means that I'm doing, 40 to 60 books at a time, really. So it's big, but not that big. And we've had a really good experience with the lease program. We've done it for a number of years before I was even involved with it. And it's very, they are not banging down your door to send things back, I'll say. So they're very willing to work with you, and it's been a really easy process working with them. Any other questions in chat?
Nothing in the chat.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, so it's, you'll want to log in.
we still recording?
We are still recording. Yes. Oh, I know there's one new question. Oh, it was just great ideas. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Our next presenter is Satoria Tomberlin, and she is the resource sharing librarian at IU Indianapolis. And she is presenting, Why Did We Buy This? Victoria.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm presenting Why Did We Buy This? Assessing automated purchasing via interlibrary loan requests. Okay. So as Leanne said, my name is Satoria Tomberlin. I'm the resource sharing librarian at IU Indianapolis. I got my MLIS from the University of Alabama in the spring of 2023. I've been working in academic libraries for 12 years. 10 years of that has been in resource sharing, and I am celebrating my 1-year anniversary at IU Indy this month. And just to give you like a little background about me and ILL and POD requests, basically every interlibrary loan department I've worked in has already had an embedded purchase on demand program. So for me, it's just something that works together really well, and that's something that I don't know, just flows and it makes sense. So just to go over some terminology, in case you're not familiar, the purchase on demand in the context of ILL refers to user-driven acquisitions prompted by an ILL request. The purchases are determined by previously agreed upon criteria, which is going to vary from library to library. And for IU Indy, our criteria is we only purchase books. We do print or electronic, but we don't do any kind of audiovisual materials. So no DVDs, Blu-rays, CDs, just books. We only purchase items that were published in the last 10 years. Our max cost is $200. We don't purchase manuals, children's books, cookbooks, self-help books, or textbooks. Our two biggest vendors for print items are YVP Services and Amazon. For POD purchases through ILL, they are considered rush requests because we are considering turnaround time. We want to get it quickly. So 9 times out of 10, you can guess the winner. It's going to be from Amazon. Oh, I do not like this. All right, so, and just a little more context about purchase on demand. Why are we buying instead of sharing? Sounds a little counterintuitive for interlibrary loan, but some of the big reasons were we found we're having difficulty obtaining new print items for patrons, especially if something was published in the last year. It's really difficult to get for a patron. A lot of libraries kind of put a moratorium on new print items. They just won't lend it to you, sometimes for up to 3 months, 6 months, or a year, because their own patrons want it. Yeah, which is fair enough, but doesn't help you if you're trying to get it for your patrons. We were looking at ways to automate collection development, which I think is something all libraries are looking at, and purchase requests in general through the traditional item request form were going down. And we saw a dissatisfaction with the traditional, with circulation rates from traditional collection development. Okay, so when I first came to IU Indy, I had a lot of questions about the POD program within ILL because I just wanted to know how is it being received, how did it work for them compared to where I was at previously. And eventually that led me to wanting to do a little bit of an assessment to see where the program was at, if it was, robust or if it was on its last legs, just out of curiosity. So I decided to do a little kind of snapshot assessment. And basically what I wanted to know was, were we getting a good investment from our POD purchases? So I decided to review the last 5 years of our print purchases. I wanted to review the electronic purchases as well, but I found out that our electronic circulation data was much messier and going to involve a lot more labor. So it's on the list of things to do. It's just going to take a lot longer. So I also found out that we have limited circulation data. We use workflows through Circe Dynex. So I have circulation counts, but I don't have quite as much of a breakdown as I would ideally like to have. I have a total, but I don't have I don't know about individual users. Like I can't tell if it's different users checking an item out or one user renewing, but some data is better than no data, as they say. So my main findings were that we had pretty good circulation on our POD items, and I have 5-year breakdown here. So the average POD book purchased within the last 5 fiscal years circulated 6.57 times, and probably won't surprise you, the books purchased 5 years ago circulated a little more than the books purchased more recently. They've had a little more shelf time. But in general, pretty good circulation for items that, for the most part, all end up in our regular circulating collection. So, and it's just very sensitive screen. Okay. So another finding was that requests were decreasing just in general. We had a drop off between 2020 and 2021. And guess what happened that year? But we also had another drop off in last year for 2024 fiscal year. So not sure what happened last year. It's a little hard to see with the sunlight on the screen, but you can also tell I broke down the difference in preference on this slide, where you can see that the preference has shifted from print to electronic. 5 years ago, print was very much the preference, with basically 2/3 of requests, that being what people wanted, and the last 2 years, electronic has taken over. So that was interesting to see as well. And then the last finding was that it was overall a pretty budget-friendly program. We stayed within the budget every year, and some years we stayed well under the budget, 2020 and last year specifically. Of course, the budget has decreased a bit. I'm assuming that's because we didn't spend it out, so they said, well, we're going to number it a little bit. So fair's fair, I guess. So looking ahead, IU India is doing a larger assessment of all their on-demand services. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to reflect. Is the ILL on-demand going to be mirrored, or is it going to be a standout in general? And then for the ILL department, I'd like to see an increase of advertisement of our ILL services. I think that will hopefully increase our requests, which will increase our POD requests as well. And I'd like to see some tutorial videos get made. It's all, in the works. And then a review of our POD criteria, just to see if we're all still in agreement on what we do and don't want to add to the collection. And then I want to kind of seek direct patron feedback regarding all of our ILL services, but of course that would include the POD program. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
This is like maybe too nitty gritty. When you have an ILL that is a POD, are you giving it to the user as if it was an ILL, like with all the paperwork and stuff, or are they just getting a book from the library? Does that make sense?
Right now, it has the paperwork. It has like the bookshop on there, like it is, but it has it's already been processed as an IU and Yama's book. So that is something we're looking at.
Oh, really? So not keeping it in the ILL ecosystem for as long?
Right. Because it's essentially not an ILL request anymore.
So what percentage of ILL books are you purchasing? ILL requests are you purchasing?
I don't have the percentage, but it's not, we're still mainly borrowing. It's not taking over. We're not buying more than borrowing books.
Can you say what your budget is right now for that?
For POD? Let's see. I think we got, so last year's budget was 18,000. I think it was lowered to 16 for this year due to us not spending it out again. Yeah. I think, I don't have that exact number on me right now. Anything else? Anything like that?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay, well, that's all I have.
Top there. Did you want to do a mascot or?
We still have, we're going to go back downstairs and do the raffle drawing. And that's.
We still have 23 minutes left in the session. If anyone has any questions, we can also end the recording earlier. You said that we have the raffle drawing.
Yeah, and you're
downstairs.
gonna do a wrap up downstairs as well. Probably at 3:15, yeah. At 3:15, yeah. She's probably going to encourage us to fill out the survey, which is inside, the link to it is inside your folder. Left side, there's a QR code, or you can go to, I think the conference page on the I register.
People on Zoom have this in the email. I think also. They will be airing the closing and the drawing. If anybody wants to attend the closing part of the conference at 3:15, that will be on Zoom also. Anything else that we need to? Unless there are questions in the chat, I'm leaving the chat open just in case there are additional questions for either of our two presenters today. If there is not, I'll let it stay open for another minute or two. I'll go ahead and end the recording and we can wander downstairs. Yeah, thank you.
I was just gonna ask Caitlin, like, because I haven't heard of the leasing program really before.
Yeah.
Does the cost seem to get a lot of buy-in from the people creating the budget, or is it just bigger?
It's really minimal, like it's quite small, so it does not, I don't think it gets a lot of scrutiny in terms of like the whole rest of our budget. And the way it works is like we say we buy 10 books, what that really means is we buy like per month, and that's really 10 credits essentially, and so like books that are $28 and under are considered 1 credit, and then like 28 to 30 something are considered 2 credits. So it's not, the dollars are not exactly how much those books are, if that makes sense. But it's not a very high cost at all for us.
And you do see a lot of circulation with those kind of temporary.
Yes, yeah. It obviously it's gonna like fluctuate. Like I said, there are some books that we get and they have 0, and I send them back, you know, after their rotation in there. But it's particularly good, like if a book's like suddenly really popular on TikTok and a lot of people want to check it out. But like our particular academic library does not need to collect all of Ellie Hazelwood's books, but we want people to be able to read them when they come out. So it's a nice way to keep things that do circulate well and also have things for a time and not commit ourselves to collecting them if they don't really fit with our collection development policy.
So you had said that if you get 5 books and return 4 and keep 1, are you keeping 1 for another month or keeping it in your collection?
No, that's keeping to purchase. Like you just keep it. Yes, yeah. So I never remember unless I'm staring at my sheet if it's you send 5 books back and keep one, or you send, I think it's you send 5 books back and then for every 5 you send back and keep one. That's slightly different math. But yes, yeah, that is to keep forever in your collection.
That's so smart.
It's a really nice program.
Do you have any, do you have any idea what Baker and Taylor does with the books that you're sending back after you lease them for a particular amount of time?
That is a great question because they do, like, they put on like an LC call number already when they send them to us and like a Baker and Taylor sticker. And like, we don't have to take things off of them. So I don't know what they do. That is a good question.
Is there any issue with going through Baker and Taylor? Because we used to have a contract with Baker and Taylor, and then they announced they weren't going to work with academics anymore. And I mean, that was many years ago at this point, but so I guess I was just surprised that they were doing this program with an academic library.
Right, yeah, we don't purchase other titles from them, really. We use Gobi for most of our like academic print book purchasing, or Amazon, like with the POD program. But they know we're an academic library as far as I know, so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we use them currently for our popular books section. And I don't know the parameters for, but it's the same thing. We use and keep.
I can look up our rep, if that would be interesting to anybody.
Are you receiving them through, from Moments, the little one?
I don't look that closely at my tags. I apologize. I know, I'm really concerned though.
Yeah. They might.
Lori Hildebrandt at Baker and Taylor is our rep. She's the same person. It is really fun. Oh, yeah. No, that is hard when you're making a display to go next to the main desk and then all of the covers don't look good because they're all the same.
They're just, bland.
Yeah, a bland cloth cover.
Yes. I think that the criteria is pretty neat, so, but I think in general, I think it's just, visualize. Yeah, I think, I do think we do get some books that come through, but.
And those could get filled by ILL, right? Just not
Yeah.
by
Oh,
POD.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that. Treated like a regular request.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're having personal conversations. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the recording if we think we're done. All right, thanks, everyone.